Well, welcome everyone to today's episode of TMI Advice You Didn't Want. Today we're jumping in and we are going to be continuing what we were talking about on our last podcast, which was basically the whole concept of these limited emotions like frustration, anger, overwhelm, whatever limited emotion you want to put there is not actually the opposite of love, but it's the separation from love. And we
Mhm.
were going to just kind of dive into that a little bit more. So, in case we haven't met, my name is Karen.
And my name is Ashley. And yeah, it's even goes back like two podcasts. So if you
Yeah.
want to truly catch up, listen to the two podcasts before this, before you
Mm-hmm.
listen here.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so to kind of put it together, I'll start at what we talked about on the first one first. And that was talking about my daughter and her relationship to time and how it changed. And it's interesting because she deals with the same like 50-50 schedule as we do and the time scarcity around that. And she was telling me about how when she was switching to our house from her bio mom's house, it would have been like probably close to 2 months ago now. She was saying how she doesn't have enough time and she was kind of panicking about not having enough time at our house. And when I first talked to her about it, it kind of came off as like a negative thing. Like at our house, she has chores and whatever else, and I processed it as oh, like she's overwhelmed and it's not calm and peaceful here. And so then I said, like, what kind of things? And she's like, and she listed off different things that she um was overwhelmed about. And it was things like she wanted to do this craft, she wanted to read her book, she wanted to hang out with friends, and she wanted to do a girls' date with me. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I'm like, so did you do any of those things at your other house? And she's like, no, like we don't really have the opportunity to. And so it became this, and like this podcast at the beginning at least is going to be a little bit more about my personal life in a little bit more detail. And so I was like, oh, it's not about her being overwhelmed of the negative and overwhelmed about being having too much to do. It's along the same lines as me, is where she wants to do too much and it's overwhelming her. And she would have this like frustration, panic energy often, a lot of the times, and then she would struggle to regulate. Um, and then 3 weeks ago now, she chose not to switch back to her bio mom's house and to live here full time. And at the time, one of the big like things that she talked about, like with myself, and when she told her bio mom why she wasn't coming back, it was because she wanted to see her friends more. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like we live two houses away from the school, walking distance to like five of her closest friends within like seconds, like easy, easy. And we live across the street from the coffee shop, the pool, like, and so it's all very like community centered around the things she loves to do and her friends. Um, and so I'm like, that makes sense because her bio mom lives in a different city, very far away, doesn't allow her to have like friend play dates, or even go to birthday parties. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like she's at that age where like she's coming into her teenage years and relationships are very, very important. So then the first week that she's with us, her brothers aren't, and she's hanging out, chilling. And I'm like, are you gonna go hang out with friends today? No. The whole week, she didn't see her friends once.
Mm.
And I'm just like, so what's going on? Like, I thought you wanted to hang out with your friends more. And like it's been a whole week and you didn't see them at all. And it would be the same as if you were at your bio mom's house. And she's like, well, I know I can.
Mm.
And so now I don't have that scarcity around it. And so I can literally, she's like, I can just do what I want to do when I want to do it. And she's like, right now, I just feel like being grounded and working on this craft. And that's what I feel like doing right now. And like she just very much was like, I now get to just sit and enjoy. And so she didn't feel like she had to hang out with her friends because she knew she could.
Yeah.
And so it was like such an eye opener for me because it's like, what happens when you remove all the things that you feel like you have to do and just get to do the things that you want to do?
Yeah.
So for her, because she knew she was going to be switching homes in 7 days, it was like, okay, I have to make sure I do all the things at that house because then for 7 days I won't be able to do any of it. So I
Right.
have to read and I have to do craft and I have to hang out with Ashley and I have to hang out with my dad and I have to hang out with my friends because come 7 days from now I can't do any of it.
Right.
And your decisions are completely different because of time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's been a massive, massive difference with her and seeing how she's choosing to live her life. She
Yeah.
literally has hung out with friends twice in the last 3 weeks. And it's like so amusing to me because the one was a birthday party.
Hmm.
And the other time was Derek was going, so my partner was going to one of her friends' dad's houses to help him out with some things. And so he's like, well, do you want to come with me? And her initial answer was no.
Mm.
And then both of us were kind of like, really, like, you've been here for 2 weeks, over 2 weeks, and it was in the third week then, and you don't want to hang out with friends at all. And
Mm.
she's like, oh, I guess I'll come. And she went. But yeah, she actually, and she didn't even go at the same time as him. She left an hour later than he did.
Mm.
Like, and so it's just, it's so interesting, like, when you have those scarcities around time and when you feel like you have all this to do, it changes your priorities and it changes your choices.
Yeah,
So,
100%. Yeah, I mean, I feel like whether it's time or just about anything that we have in life, there can be that scarcity around us that changes how, like you said, how we respond in a certain situation. And so,
yeah,
yeah, like you look at people that have scarcity around money, and it's the same thing, right? Like that fear of, oh God, I'm not going to have enough. And so you like, I gotta make sure that I have enough. I gotta like hoard it all. I gotta do what I need to do. Whereas if you don't have that mindset, you know it's just gonna come, it's gonna flow, and there's an ease to it. It's a
yeah,
whole lot easier. Like I was on Facebook the other day, and I had a friend that had done a post about money, and it was this exact thing where it was like, yeah, like money isn't everything, but let's be honest, when it's just flowing into your life and you know it's going to flow into your life and there's no scarcity around it, like you don't have to worry about how am I going to pay XYZ bill. You don't
yeah,
have that scarcity anymore. And so the question is, how can we give ourselves, like this is what I constantly ask myself. How do I give myself my freedom no matter what situation, whether it's time, money, my health, whatever it is? Like, how do I give myself that freedom no matter what the situation is? Like, so in Aubrey's situation, it was like, well, I mean, I don't have freedom. Like, I have to go here and then I have to go here. And like, my time is always sanctioned for me. And so, like, in that situation, it's like, okay, how could she have created that freedom in that situation? Because a lot of us don't necessarily have what she just created for herself, or she's just now living with you, right? But many of us, when it comes to like money, we have to figure out, how do I create freedom around things like money and don't have scarcity around it? Or time, how do I not have scarcity around time? Because it's going to keep marching on whether I want it to or not. So how do I create that freedom for myself? And I mean, it's always going to go back to the thoughts and the feelings. What's a new thought I can think so that I can create a new choice, so that I can create that new experience, the new behavior, and the new feeling at the end of the day, right? So
yeah,
it's a process, let's be honest. Like, there's no way somebody could just wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, I don't ever have scarcity around time or money or my health or anything in life that I feel is important, right?
yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and I think this comes back to like what we were talking to Tiffany about on
Mm,
our one podcast about how um like you can create the life that you want. And it's about actually knowing that there's options.
yeah.
Like a lot of the times we feel like there's no other option and this is our only option. And that's how Aubrey felt. She felt like
Mhm.
I have to switch back and forth.
Yeah.
And there is an aspect to the court system that plays a
Yeah.
role in it.
Yeah. A little bit.
But
I can understand why she
and
thought
so
that.
yeah, so like there is that aspect. But she also watches me say, it doesn't matter what the rules are, I decide my life. It doesn't matter, I create my life.
Mm,
And I say that so often, and I don't have to worry about that person. I create my life.
mhm,
And we were talking about this like personally of like what made it switch of where she actually just decided not to switch. Because there wasn't a conversation specifically that day or that week leading up to anything. Um, but I think that she just realized this is my life and I create my life
mm,
and I'm creating this. And just watching how it all unfolds is so interesting. And for me, it's definitely like I'm in the woods with it or the weeds or whatever you want to call it, but I'm also sitting back watching it happen
mm.
and watching pieces come into place that are just perfectly timed and choices I made where I was debating this or that and picking this actually made a difference over here. And like never was there a conversation where I told Aubrey like you shouldn't switch.
Right.
Switching is bad and not going to be your best interest or anything like that. Um, but there was little things that I was doing in the background that I had no idea were playing a role in this.
Mm,
Um, and so
mm.
yeah, it's super interesting. I'm trying not to like there's so many things that I'm like trying to stay grounded myself. And I think it comes down to that whole like loving yourself and being grateful and knowing that there's always possibilities.
Mhm.
And it just really is not allowing yourself to be in that little box. If you don't like your job, change it. If you
Right.
don't like your community, change it. Like, and yes, there's going to be action steps and that yes, there's going to be things that you have to do, but there really is truly very few situations where you don't have any autonomy on those kind of things. There's
Right.
just again time that plays that role. Um, and watching how I talked about it on two podcasts ago, she is different. There's so many things about her that are so different. And um, so Derek was having a conversation with her last night, and then she told me about it. And he's like, I'm very confused at why things are changing so much for you. Because when you used to switch back and forth houses, you would come back, like, and so her brothers came back to our house yesterday night and they look dead. They look like zombies. They
Yeah.
look like they haven't slept in a week. And he's like, you used to look like that. You
Yeah.
used to be worn out and exhausted. And we just assumed you were staying up too late. And that was it. And now
Is
we've
she giving
been
you
watching
insight?
her.
This is interesting.
Sorry?
Is she giving you insight as to what was happening? This is interesting.
No.
Because now she
She
can
her
observe.
response. Sorry?
Now she can observe from where you were observing.
Oh, and she's always has. Like
Mhm.
I've overheard her talking to her friends about how her brothers, especially the younger one, is two completely different people in two different
Yeah.
houses.
Yeah.
And so she's already observed a lot of that where she's like, I cannot believe the difference in my brothers, especially Knox, where she's
Mhm.
like, he is two completely different people in both houses, like
Mhm.
absolutely different. And like it blows her mind so much that she talks to her friends about it.
Mhm.
And um yeah, so anyways, he was saying we've been watching her and like as she's been the only one with us and it was a 4-day weekend, we're like, okay, well let's test a couple of late nights. Some of your friends stay up way later than you. Let's see how you handle it because we have a 4-day weekend. Let's see if you can push that a little bit back. The one night so we stayed up till like 10 her normal bedtime is 7:30, 8. Like,
Mhm.
and we stayed up till 10, and no sign of tiredness or anything like that. Woke up at her normal time, no attitude or anything like that. And before, if we ever had a late night or she had a sleepover or anything like that, she was a fucking monster the next day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then that night, we started binge watching a TV show as a family, or the three of us.
yeah. Uh-oh.
We stayed up till almost midnight.
Oh
Almost
boy.
midnight. And then she slept in maybe a half an hour longer than normal, so not really anything. And whether she was actually sleeping or just still in her room, I don't know.
Mhm.
And then the next night it was like 10:30, 11 again. And then the next night we had a I think it was like 8:30. So still like an hour past her normal bedtime on a school night. The other nights were not school nights. And then last night I think she went to bed around 9:30. And so again, a school night compounded by 5 late nights. And Derek's like, I don't understand. Like if you had one late night that was 9 o'clock, you were a monster the next day. You came back from your bio moms dead and exhausted. And now we've been staying up till like 10:30, 9, midnight, multiple nights in a row with normal wake up times, and you're the same.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't get it.
The
And she was like,
energetics are different.
exactly.
I mean, it's that whole concept of that separation from love. Like when she's at that other house, I don't know. I've never been there, so I can only
Me
share
either.
what, yeah, exactly. I can only share what you've shared with me, but it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of connection with source, connection with love. And when we're separate, we're going to feel those limited emotions. When we feel like we're separate from God, from universe, from source, from void, I don't care what you call it, same thing. When we feel like we're separate, we're going to feel exhausted
Yeah.
because we're not on that same energetic frequency. And so when she's living with you, you're literally working on your energetics. And as a result, you're affecting everyone else in your household. And so she's picking up on that and she's able to easily bounce back when normally she wouldn't be able to before. I mean,
Yeah.
all of us, no matter who you are, whether you're a child or an adult, all of us want to have that steady, energetic flow as opposed to feeling like I'm always in lack. You know,
Yeah.
like when you're connected to source, you don't have that separation, but when you're in lack of it, you're going to feel a lot of other things that are not the same as love.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and even like when we withheld back in September, and we withheld all of them, um, for safety concerns. And our youngest, he's almost 7, and he still has naps because he needs them. And
mm,
it's like unheard of. And like literally his friends' parents will be like, he naps and then goes to bed at 7. And it's like, yeah, he'll
yeah.
have an hour to 2 hour nap and then go back to bed at 7, 7:30, no problem.
Mm,
And he's exhausted. And I just assumed, again, that they were staying up so late at the other house
mhm.
and waking up so early because they don't really do anything. Like they go to the pool, whereas we do hard things. And then like that makes sense where he crashes. But even when he's with us, he doesn't look like he's dying
Right.
because he's that tired. And so it was just like I don't get how they can get to that level of tired unless they're like sleeping literally 3 hours a night. Um and I just assumed that they probably were because they wake up really early and they would go to bed really late. So I'm like, they probably are getting like 4 hours of sleep a night and it's compounding horribly for them.
Mm,
But that was 5 weeks that we had them. Like we had late nights and normal nights, not to the same extent as we are right now with Aubrey. And he didn't need naps. He was good. And so I completely agree with you on the whole like spiritual like kids need that normal, they need that stable, they need that connection 100%. And to put it into even like not a spiritual way that a lot more people can probably relate to, stress is exhausting.
exhausted.
Regulating your emotions is fucking awful.
Mm,
Like if I have to I spent yesterday at the courthouse for like however many 4 hours. I came home and I needed a nap.
Mm-hmm.
because I had to regulate myself as I wrote out all the bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's exhausting to regulate. And so these kids aren't exhausted just because they're definitely still going to bed late and waking up early, but it's because of what you said, and also because they have to emotionally regulate the entire time they're there because there's no adult that she interacts with, her parents, Derek's parents, like anyone that she interacts with, they cannot regulate their emotions. Her mom screamed and cussed at me in the courtroom
Mm-hmm.
multiple times, like in a public setting, a
Yeah.
public professional setting. And it's just like, what? Like,
Yeah.
how can an adult do that?
Yeah.
And the amounts of times their bio mom has done that, where she has cursed and threatened and screamed at us in public settings in front of the children, is unbelievable. Like, just like there's no regulation whatsoever there. So
Mm.
then you have children that are used to being with
Yeah.
our house, and
Yeah.
then we don't always regulate perfectly by any means. Like, we definitely
Of course.
suck
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. 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 Just
But
like
on
anybody,
the
there's
most
always
part,
going to be something to continue to
yeah,
work on. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
for the most part, we're regulated.
Mm.
And for the most part, we're stable. For the most part, we're consistent. We're connected to them. Even when we're dysregulated because of something that's happened that we weren't able to regulate through, we still have connection with them.
Mhm.
And if we, like, say I do yell at them, which we definitely try not to do and rarely do, um, if I do raise my voice and yell at them, I apologize and reconnect with them after.
Mhm.
And that's something that is unheard of at the other house or with the grandparents that they interact with as well. And so these kids are coming back like just completely
Exhausted.
regulated, exhausted.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's hard because many adults live their life dysregulated
Mhm.
like that too. Like just what
Yeah.
you were just saying, but like
Yeah.
as you said, it's exhausting, and that's one
Mhm.
of the biggest reasons. Like we kind of touched on this a little bit. That's one of the biggest reasons that your body will create disease is because there's literally no time to heal because you're always emotionally dysregulated.
Yeah.
So anything happens in your life and now you have a severe health issue. I mean, anytime I get sick, because I never get sick. Anytime I get sick, I gotta ask myself, am I staying emotionally regulated? What's going on with me? What's
Yeah.
happening, right? It's always a sign of something externally in my environment that I'm reacting to and I'm taking internal, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm like, I gotta work on that. Oops.
Mhm.
And so, like, whenever I was at my other business with my business partners, I got sick 3 times in 2 years. That is unheard of for me.
Mhm.
And you better believe it wasn't going unnoticed by me either. Because the
Mhm.
first time I got sick, I don't know if you remember this, Ashley, but I lost my voice so badly you couldn't hear me. Like
Yeah.
it was intense. And I know, like looking back, and even then it didn't fall on deaf ears back then either. But now looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't feel like I had a voice because I didn't.
Yeah.
And I knew that back then. And I was like, how do I make this work? How do I kind of figure this out? And it got to a point where I was like, I don't think I need to. The option also is to just say, I don't need to have a
Yeah.
voice here. I can have a voice anywhere, you know?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, and that wasn't like it was right, wrong, good or bad. I don't want anybody to listen to this and be like, oh, my business partners were the worst. No, I just think that it wasn't the right fit for what we were all trying to create. And that's okay with me.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, anytime my body has something going on, I look on a deeper level of what's happening. Why am I exhausted right now? Why am I
Mhm.
sick? Why am I blah, blah, blah? Is there something that I'm not actually looking at and I'm not actually dealing with? And for me, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, the answer is always yes. There's something I haven't dealt with. There's something that I'm not connected with in my 3D reality, and I don't like it, and I'm pushing back against it. And so, yeah, so like looking at when kids have to experience that as well, kids are little sponges. Like they're going to pick up, all of us pick up on energy from other people, but especially when you're younger, your brain waves are not developed, right? Like it's a different brain wave. So when we are younger, we spend a majority of our time in a theta and alpha brainwave state. Those two brainwave states, your subconscious brain is wide open, right? Theta, wide open. Alpha, there's a little bit of a veil there between the conscious and the subconscious mind. But that's why kids are sponges, because they're literally absorbing all of this energetic flow because there's no barrier anymore. There's no analytical mind to say, I actually don't believe that that's true. I actually don't need to subscribe to that. There is zero barrier to that subconscious mind. So you literally just absorb everything. That's why it's so important as an adult that is around kids, takes care of kids as a mother or a father, to really focus on how am I thinking and how am I feeling? Because this doesn't just affect me, it affects everybody around me. I mean, even when you're sleeping at night, I look at when Matthew will tell me I had a shitty night's sleep last night. And I will ask myself, did I have a shitty night's sleep? Did I transfer that to him? And
Mm.
sometimes the answer is, yeah, I think I did. I don't know if he does that or not, but I do it all the time. Whenever he tells me, oh, I slept like shit last night, I'll be like,
Yeah.
I was feeling this way before I went to sleep, and I know I continued to feel that way while I was sleeping. And I know that that energetically transferred because when you're asleep,
Yeah.
that brainwave state is completely wide open. You're literally absorbing what's going on energetically around you. Like, so that's the thing that's so important to remember. Like, kids are just completely wide open. And it's a beautiful thing, but it also can, if you're not careful, it can really cause some deep, deep traumas for
Yeah.
children.
Well,
So,
and that's the thing that, like, with our kids, I've really worked on them learning how to critically think.
mm,
One, because I don't agree with a lot of the stuff being taught in schools,
mm,
and I want them to try and test things. And two, like their bio mom does tell them a lot of stuff that's like it can go as crazy as I don't love them, and it'd be as basic as this is special and good for you for whatever kind of thing. And so I think that's like the really big thing is learning how to teach children to critically think so that they can learn to piece things together and all that kind of stuff because otherwise they stay wide open for a lot longer
mm,
and we become adults and we follow the status quo. We do what the boss says, we do what is the government says, we do what we're told to do by our doctors, and we never stop to think, is this actually most effective for me?
mm.
We follow the status quo with our friends and our social settings of being negative and um like it's almost like a pride thing, like who has the hardest life gets the
Yeah,
winning
I
trophy,
do.
you
Yeah.
know?
Mm,
And whenever I hear kids, my kids or any kids really talking like that, it's just like, really? Like, is that what you want?
mm,
Um, and so like I think I've told this story on the podcast, like Atticus really wanted to donate to a foundation because there was a prize if he donated to it.
mhm.
And I said, okay, that's fine, but I'm not donating to it because I don't agree with it. And he's like, what? They're doing all these great things. How could you not agree with it? I'm like, okay, let's do some research.
Yeah.
And so we jumped onto their website and I said, okay, we're going to figure out how much money they're actually spending on these things and the prizes. And so we probably spent like 20 minutes and he was just like, oh, because it was such a small fraction and he understands math. There was such a small fraction of the money going to those causes. He's like, I don't like that. I don't want to give my money to that. And then there was also the prize was a draw. And so it wasn't a guarantee, but they advertised it as if it was a guarantee.
Mm,
So then he was like, they're lying. And I'm like, yeah, that's why we have to critically think and do our research. Or even this morning, he was brushing his teeth and he's like, oh, yeah, my bio mom bought a special toothbrush. And I'm like, what makes it special? He's like, oh, it just gets rid of like the plaque on your teeth better. I'm like, what about it gets rid of the plaque on your teeth better? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, "Okay." And I didn't say anything. I don't know what kind of toothbrush it is, but like I asked those questions to teach their brain to ask those questions themselves,
Mhm.
you know? And like I don't know of any toothbrushes that get rid of plaque necessarily better than others, but that's just me. And so, and I didn't say that to him either, but I'm like, if there is something like that, like you got to critically ask those questions and critically think. So I'm like, out of curiosity, like, what is it? You know? And then he was like, oh, I don't actually know. And I was like, okay, cool. Keep brushing your teeth.
Yeah, keep doing your thing. Enjoy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, as you get older, so you hit the age of 8 to 12, and that's when that beta brainwave state really starts to take hold. And like generally, like you and I right now, we're sitting in beta brainwaves because we're connecting with our external environment. Now, if we were to connect with our internal environment, close our eyes, and connect with ourself internally, we're starting to enter into alpha brainwave states, right? So, but as we get older and we hit 8 to 12, we start to actually connect more with our
Yeah.
external environment. And that's just a natural
Yeah.
process. And as you teach those things, like, oh, let's critically think, a child can jump into that beta brainwave, but then still be able to play in their alpha brainwave state so that they can continue to create that imaginative, like beautiful world that they create. So, yeah, I don't know, our brain and this 3D reality are just a very interesting thing that we've created. I don't get it sometimes. I'm like, why did it need to be like that?
Yeah, sometimes it is a little interesting, but it's part of the process, I guess. There's not really answers around that at this moment for me.
Yeah, at this moment, for me either, because I'm like, why in the world did I choose to be
Mhm.
here at this time? Why?
Yeah. And like with our like increasingly stressful life at times, like with business and co-parenting and whatever it is, um sometimes it really gets you like in this like exhausted, like when is this going to end?
Mm,
Especially co-parenting. Like the
yeah.
we've been in court for 4 years. Like it's like we're done.
Mhm.
And um I keep on saying to my partner, I'm like, even like there's times where I struggle to regulate through this for sure. But when I'm regulated, I'm like, every single disadvantage comes with the seed of equal or greater advantage. And every single time we have gone to court and gone through this process of stress, not does it it doesn't always work out exactly the way we want,
Mhm.
but something good always comes from it. And it also shows up in another area of our life. And
Mm,
so that's the thing too. It's not always going to show up like, oh, you put in this effort here, so you're getting it rewarded here. It might be like you put this effort in here and you're getting rewarded way over there, you know? And so
And then
that's
the other thing
that.
we have to remember too is we probably don't even see the reward because we're
Yeah.
only working off of our five senses in this 3D
Yeah.
reality. And we don't
Mhm.
actually see all the energy that we are putting in behind the scenes that nobody can physically see or touch or taste or feel.
Yeah.
Like all, that is still compounding as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that's the really big important part is like trusting that doing the work is going to give you what you want, and doing the work is really just managing your thoughts.
Mhm.
And not being lazy, but like you can't manifest out of thin air necessarily. You can, but everything has to align.
Hmm. And by align, when you say that, for me, it's the body, mind, soul alignment.
Mhm.
So, and the body, in my opinion, is one of the most difficult things to get in line because the body said, no, I'm the unconscious mind. I want to do what I want. And it kicks and screams. I mean,
Yeah.
if you've never meditated before and you sit down to meditate, what's going to happen? Your body's
Yeah.
going to kick and scream because your body is the unconscious mind saying, no, I don't want to do this. I've been trained to run around all day. Why would I want to sit down now?
So
Yeah.
to me, that's the piece of the puzzle. Because your mind is like, no, I want to be in control here. But your body is kicking and screaming and going, nope, nope. You've told me that this is how you want to be, so this is how we're gonna be. And so that's that creation at the end of the day too. How do you get the body, mind, spirit completely aligned together? And that is the process.
Yeah. And
The never-ending process.
yeah. And that's where I say that's the mastering the masculine, the mastering the doing of that alignment so that it's unconscious competence.
Yep. So, but yeah, that was a good one. So I think this is a great place to end. So friends, if you are listening on YouTube, go ahead, give us a like, a subscribe. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast host, give us a 5-star. Let us know in the comments once again what you think. And with that, we're going to call TMI Advice You Didn't Want a wrap for today. See everyone next time.
Thanks so much for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue hanging out with us, and don't forget to subscribe.